Hi there, very good morning. Welcome back to ET Now. You're watching Market Cafe with me, Kanishka Sarkar. And this is the show where we'll take you through all the global and domestic cues and also tell you about the stocks that you must keep on your radar today. But let's get started with an eye on the globe and see how markets fare as far as the Wall Street is concerned. Now, US markets did end on a mixed note yesterday. As traders are awaiting fresh inflation data that could guide the Federal Reserve rate decision next week. The S&P 500, that ticked up just about 0.1%, whereas the Nasdaq, that rose 0.2%. On the other hand, Dow, that however slipped a little bit, just about flat, but slipped 0.07% to that 47,850 level. Strength in tech stocks continued, with Meta up about 3.4%, Nvidia gaining 2.1%, and that helped the Nasdaq notch its 8th positive session in 9 at least. Now, investors are navigating mixed labor signals. Job cuts for the year have topped 1 million, even as weekly jobless claims, they have fallen to the lowest in September 2022. Now, markets are still expecting a dovish Fed stance, with traders pricing in an 87% chance of a quarter point cut on December 10th, that is next week. Now, remember, today brings key data that includes delayed reports on consumer spending, incomes, and PCE inflation guard as well, plus the University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Survey. So we'll wait out for all of these cues and see how it all pans out. If we talk about how the indices have done in the past week, now for the week so far, S&P 500 is up just about 0.1%, Nasdaq 0.6%, and the Dow, that has gained about 0.3% for the week. So yes, that's about how the Wall Street fared, but let's also talk about some of the commodities that are yet again in focus. And firstly, let's put the spotlight on oil, which did move higher yesterday. That was supported by growing expectations of a US Federal Reserve rate cut, which could boost demand. Brent settled at around $63, nearly 1% higher, while the WTI, that closed more than 1% higher at that $59 per barrel mark. Now, remember, as of this morning, some of these gains have been scaled back, but yes, that's how the market settled yesterday, about 1% of gains over there. Now, remember, sentiment also firmed after Ukraine peace talks stalled, reducing hopes of Russian oil returning to global markets. There's a weaker dollar, rising geopolitical tensions, including US-Venezuela friction, and continued Ukrainian strikes on Russian energy assets. All of these have added further support to crude. However, like I said, gains were capped by higher US crude inventories and expectations of an oversupplied market. Now, let's talk about how the yellow metal is faring. That was largely steady around that 4,200 per ounce mark. A weaker dollar supported prices, but higher US Treasury yields that have kept the upside limited. In fact, traders are now awaiting the US PCE inflation data and the Fed meeting next week, as expectations of a December rate cut continue to anchor sentiment for both of these commodities.
Okay, and let's shift focus to some macros then. In US weekly jobless claims plunged to 191,000, the lowest in more than 3 years, easing worries of a sudden labor market downturn. The drop, partly influenced by holiday season data quirks, contrasts with private surveys showing modest November job losses. Continuing claims also dipped, and planned layoffs fell sharply, suggesting a labor market that remains soft but stable. Economists say alternative trackers may be overstating weakness, with overall conditions still consistent with a slow-moving, stagnant jobs picture.
All right, let's move on and let's tell you what else is happening. Now, French President Emmanuel Macron met Xi Jinping in Beijing, seeking a reset in a relationship strained by tariffs, trade investigations, and geopolitical frictions. China has signaled openness to more French imports, while Macron pushed for a balanced relationship and urged Beijing's help on Ukraine. The leaders signed agreements across energy, agriculture, and education as well. Even so, tensions linger, from EV tariffs and cognate duties to Beijing's Taiwan stance and Europe's sharper trade posture.
Shifting focus then, Netflix has emerged as the top bidder for Warner Brothers' Discovery studio and streaming assets, according to a Reuters source, a move that could reshape Hollywood and potentially lower consumer streaming costs by bundling Netflix with HBO Max. Reports say Netflix's proposal is 85% cash, but the sale process has turned contentious. Paramount Skydance was accused WBD of favoring Netflix and demanded an independent committee to ensure a fair auction, even as rival bidders including Comcast and Paramount have sweetened their offers.
All right, then, on to the biggest story of the day then. Russian President Vladimir Putin received a warm and symbolic welcome in New Delhi yesterday, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi greeting him at Palam Airport and the two leaders leaving together in the same car. In a wide-ranging interview with the India Today ahead of formal talks, Putin questioned why the United States penalizes India for buying Russian oil while continuing to import Russian nuclear fuel itself, calling Washington's stance one that deserves examination. Now, this marks Putin's first visit to India since the Ukraine war that began in 2022, and both sides are using the 27-hour trip to reinforce a relationship rooted in defense, energy, and strategic cooperation. Putin also praised the BrahMos program and India's work on Russian origin platforms, saying that they reflect the spirit of Make in India. The visit also saw the launch of a Russian education agency in New Delhi aimed at deepening academic ties as well. In fact, we caught up with a whole host of experts to decode what Putin's visit means. Let's take a look.
Seems to me clear that the major topic is going to be arms and the defense relationship. I don't expect that there will be much conversation regarding the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the worst violation of UN principles since World War II. And there will be questions about trying to increase the economic relationships between Russia and India. Except for oil, there really isn't much of an economic relationship. And if that relationship with Russia is going to amount to anything, there's going to have to be discussion about what trade can happen.
Well, I think one is the defense part of it, which is I don't think the Su-57 is a serious issue here. I think it is really more S-400s. See, that we had contracted for 5 batteries of S-400s. We've only gotten 3 because of the Ukraine war. So getting 2 more is important. Plus, we are likely to get even more batteries of S-400s. The second thing is the upgrade of the BrahMos into the BrahMos 2, which is a highly effective supersonic missile. But what the BrahMos 2 will be a hypersonic missile.
Okay, so that's the take coming in on from experts, but it's not just President Putin in New Delhi. He's bought his A-team, from Lavrov shaping up foreign policy to Belousov driving defense modernization, and Rosatom, Roscosmos and Russia's top bankers in Dow. A powerhouse delegation, Dragov takes us through the key players as a part of his team.
5+ defense and trade analysts and delegates coming to India with Putin. First, we're speaking about Sergei Lavrov, who's the Minister of Foreign Affairs. He's Russia's longest-serving foreign minister and central to Putin's foreign policy architecture. He's his right-hand man. Then we're speaking about Andrei Bulsov. He's the Minister of Defense, the key economist in Russia, involved in leading the military modernization mission in Russia, key to joint manufacturing of export of BrahMos. Well, that's a person to watch for. Third person is Maxim Restinokov, Minister of Economic Development, and is key to architecture of Russian economic strategy, and hence is a person to look for when it comes to strategic economic investments in India. Fourth person speaking, it's Dmitry Shugayev. He's the Director of Federal Service for Military and Technical Cooperation, FSMTC. He is the person involved in arms export and negotiation of architecture. Key role he's going to be playing in India's defense contracts. Another person coming with Putin is Dmitry Bokanov. He's the CEO of Roscosmos, a very important space agency, hence is a person to watch for. Another person coming along with Putin is Alexei Likhachev. He's a Director General of Roscosmos again. He's a leading Russian nuclear energy expansion in India and is key to technological transfer initiatives of small modular reactors, SMRs, something that India is watching for. Another person coming to India with Putin is Kirill Dmitriev. He's a CEO of Russia's Direct Investment Fund, RDIF, and hence is an important person when we're looking at investments and economic cooperation architecture. He's overseeing the rupee ruble settlement mechanism for over 90 plus projects in India. Andriy Kosnes is another person coming along with Putin. He's the president and chairperson of VTB Bank. He's a person to look out for when we're talking about financial sector. He's also managing the rupee ruble settlement, and hence is a person to look out for. The last person we're highlighting is German Greff. He's the CEO and chairman of SBER Bank. This is Russia's largest bank leader and key to circumventing the SWIFT sanctions that were imposed by US. Hence, these are the people to look out for that Putin is bringing to India.
All right, thanks, Raghav, for that update. Well, the India-Russia trade story has really exploded from under $10 billion a decade ago to more than $70 billion today, driven almost entirely by energy imports. But India now wants to correct that imbalance with higher exports in pharma, agri and marine goods. Raghav is back again to take us through the numbers.
When India-Russia bilateral trade has reached the historic USD 70 billion mark, and this is the numbers for FY24. Speaking about the exponential growth, pre-pandemic, this trade stood at 10 billion, and this has been 5.8x increase in the trade numbers. Well, this is not it. The ambitious trade targets are set at 100 billion mark for 2030. Speaking about the trade targets and the trajectory so far, in 2014, the trade stood at USD 9.5 billion mark and has now reached 70 billion mark, only to exponentially grow at 100 billion mark. Well, India's exports to Russia are today worth 4.8 billion. Speaking about the chart in terms of how they are divided, with pharmaceutical products have 28% share in the total exports. Engineering and manufacturing products hold 32% share. Agricultural exports hold 21.79% share, and ceramics hold 8% share. Speaking about Russia's export to India, which are on the higher side, the maximum that India imports from Russia is crude oil and petroleum products, which stand at 88.29%. Coal and coke stand at 5%, again, a part of the petroleum junction. The combined energy and security demand of India is potentially put up at 93.69%, which makes the huge chunk of India's exports from Russia. And agricultural imports, again, have 3.6% mark in the total pie chart. These trade figures represent India and Russia's comprehensive partnership. At this point, again, the trades are tilted towards Russia's end, but given the current geopolitical considerations and geoeconomic considerations, these trade figures can change in the coming 25 years.
Okay, Raghav, thanks for taking us through all of that. So lots of agendas and lots of important people who've come along with Putin to get the ball rolling on the India-Russia deals. But Russian President Putin's visit to India is also expected to boost the ties between the two countries. My colleague Sumita Karir spoke to Ajay Sahai, the Director General and CEO at FIEO, Sameep Shastri, the Vice President at BRICS, CCI, and Satyakarn Punya, the President at Rus Biofarm. Let's listen in to what they're expecting to see from the meet.
There's a huge shift of textile that was already existing, but the market has opened up further because of the sanctions. The Russian market is fairly new for all Indians to explore. So textile industry, you see a lot of FMCG goods, food security types. Like you have a lot of grains going, rice going to Russia. So it's a strong help that will happen. And this trade agreement, we are hearing that a lot of MOUs are going to be signed. Right. Between the state heads as well as the ministers.
But what are the expectations in terms of what could be signed given the priority areas?
So as an industry body, the feelers that we've got is there's going to be good technology sharing that they're going to be talking about. The technology companies will have a better option towards CIS market because of Russia. And then we are also hearing that doors will open for frozen food industry, right, as well as leather goods, as well as pharmaceutical. In terms of because of the licenses issues in Russia, I feel that's going to be a big market that's going to go up.
Right, sir, but let me also ask you about BRICS, given the fact that India is going to host the chairmanship of BRICS in 2026, and President Donald Trump particularly has hit out at the BRICS for the kind of efforts that the BRICS set of nations, more importantly China and Russia, have initiated with respect to having a local currency, especially for trade, a local BRICS currency for trade. How do you think that is going to be looked at, and is that a serious challenge then?
So, there have been a lot of talks for over a decade for BRICS currency, I feel. But what our government is doing is best. We are already trading with the Indian rupee in 22 countries, and trading in local currency, we still just need to create a marketplace where the valuation has to be right as per day-to-day needs of the export, which they're already creating the mechanism in a blockchain technology where it's going to be in equal measures and we'll be able to trade. And I feel that, local trade would definitely help the economics of every BRICS Plus nation. See, as India, as our Honorable Prime Minister and Foreign Minister has been stating that we are allies to everybody, but for us, our priority is our economic growth and our industrial growth and our agriculture and farmers to be protected. And that's what all our FTA agreements talk about, whether it's with UK or with Europe. And in spite of all the taxations that US has imposed, we are not bending. Its primary reason is that. And I feel that we will be strong-headed towards every. There's a huge shift of textile that was already existing, but the market has opened up further because of the sanctions. The Russian market is fairly new for all Indians to explore. So textile industry, you see a lot of FMCG goods, food security types. Like you have a lot of grains going, rice going to Russia. So it's a strong help that will happen. And this trade agreement, we are hearing that a lot of MOUs are going to be signed tomorrow between the state heads as well as the ministers.
But what are the expectations in terms of what could be signed given the priority areas?
So as an industry body, the feelers that we've got is there's going to be good technology sharing that they're going to be talking about. The technology companies will have a better option towards CIS market.
Well, I just made a very short and very concrete speech. See, Russia is now focusing on localization of production. And there is a huge opportunity for Indian companies to come and partner with Russian companies in terms of being a partner for technology transfer, being a partner for supply of raw materials for making the active pharmaceutical ingredients. Then they can partner for high-tech projects like monoclonal antibodies, biosimilars, biotechnology. Then there is a space for the medical devices also. But the whole focus is to come and invest in Russia because right now it's the time to be there.
But India has a demographic dividend, right? And which is why I think countries across the world are looking at investing in India. But let's come back to the visit of President Putin. What are you expecting in terms of the kind of talks that will happen when President Putin arrives here in India?
So first I'll reply to your first comment that because of the demographic advantage India has a bigger market. Of course, yes. But Russia, the Western companies which were operating in Russia, they have left Russia. So now is the time that you have an opportunity to use it. And while we are talking, already the smart companies from India are already investing. Yeah. Regarding our president coming to India and what kind of talks, see, I'm not a political person, so I see that...
But what's the understanding that you've gotten in terms of the focus?
Well, I think the signal is very clear that's been given to the West that Russia is not alone. Russia has got solid allies, very warm allies, very strong friends like India with them. So that is the message. And of course, there are a lot of serious high-level talks about possible government-to-government cooperation in the future.